Now picture this, you're a benevolent monarch, you've built this amazing city, this beautiful empire, the economy is prosperous, the people are happy, and then you wake up from your dream. That's kind of what it's like in Empire's End. It's a really interesting twist on the civ building genre, where instead of building up a glorious empire, you're watching it crumble around you. And if you can get your empire to crumble just a little bit less than everyone else's, then you might just win the whole dang thing. So if you're interested in learning more about this new take on the civ building genre that's out on Kickstarter now, then might I suggest? Hi, I'm Alex from Might I Suggest a Game, a channel devoted to helping you find your perfect board game. On today's episode of Fresh from the Cellar, we're going to be talking about a game that just launched on Kickstarter called Empire's End from John D. Clair and Brotherwise Games. Empire's End plays with 2 to 4 players in about 20 minutes per player, but it's definitely one of those games that speeds up the more you play it. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview on how to play so that you can get the general gist of the game. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I liked and some of the things that I didn't like about the game, and then I'm going to talk about the types of people that I think would really enjoy this game. And my whole goal with all of this is that when you get to the end of this video, you should have a great idea of whether or not you want to back this. So anyways, will Empire's End be the perfect game for you? Let's find out, shall we? Alright, let's start with a quick overview. Empire's End begins with a variable setup, with one player randomly placing their location tiles, and then every other player matching that setup so that all of your empires are identical to begin with. You'll start with a few resources and 4 disaster/innovation cards in your hand that you'll use to build your engine throughout the game. Now that engine is inevitably going to fall apart, but we'll get to that a little bit later. You'll also put the turn track in the middle of the table. This will tell you what's coming next, and spoiler alert, it's a lot of disasters.
Yikes! I mean, not yikes.
Speaking of disasters, on a black space with columns, you'll draw 1 disaster card per column and resolve it, the effects of which I'll talk about in a minute. Green spaces represent the economy phase, which will give you resources and special abilities based on your surviving locations. Tan spaces are the industry phase. These are used to rebuild some of your locations, as well as improve your empire with innovations and any industry-triggered powers. And finally, red spaces are the conflict phase, where players will blind bid for military supremacy to gain bonuses and avoid unfortunate location swaps. Anyways, the majority of these spaces are disasters, so let's talk a little bit more about those. When a disaster is flipped, you'll place your fire markers on the location or locations that are in danger. This is based on the number that's in the top right of the disaster card. Then the first player will start a bidding phase by placing one of the matching resources on the card, or a coin, which acts as a wild. Each consecutive player will either follow and place a resource of their own on the stockpile, or abstain and absorb the disaster. When you take a disaster, you'll have to destroy the location tile that was at risk by flipping it over to its destroyed side. This means you can't get any victory points for it unless you rebuild it. But as a reward, you'll get to keep any of the resources that were on the card when you picked it up, presumably allowing you to bid further in the future and avoid other disasters. You'll continue resolving events and trying to keep your empire afloat until you reach the end of the turn track, at which point you'll add up the values of your starting locations, your current victory point total, and points from any endgame bonuses you might have in your city, and whoever has the most points wins. Anyways, I hope that overview is enough to give you a good idea of what Empire's End is all about. So now let's jump into my thoughts on this game. Empire's End is a game about delaying the inevitable. It's literally if that "this is fine" meme was a board game.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
I mean, it's not a civ building game, it's a civ destroying game. And I think that whole theme really comes through in the gameplay and makes this occupy a unique space. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the disasters really feel disastrous. And every time you take one, it feels like your whole game is gonna be ruined. But you have to remember, everyone's gonna be taking these disasters, so it's not as bad as it seems like at first. Even from the get-go, there was never a turn where I thought, oh wow, this is a nice break in the action. I mean, even when it's just the economy phase and you're just getting income, you're constantly reminded about how your beautiful engine that you took so long to build just doesn't work anymore. One thing's for sure, you'll definitely experience the 5 stages of grief at some point during this game. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the bargaining phase, just negotiating and making deals around the table to try to stave off my inevitable destruction. I mean, the game can be so brutal at times that the gameplay almost feels semi-cooperative, because you're all just trying to work together to not be completely wiped off the face of the planet. But I will say, even though these brutal types of games aren't usually my cup of tea, because you're all sharing in the disasters in Empire's End, you start to feel this sort of communal sympathy for each other, which actually takes away from the negative player interaction. I mean, you can't really be mean to the other players because the game is too busy being mean to you. So if you're like me and you're more of a chaos agent than a strategist, then I think you're definitely gonna like this game. Now, I will say, if you like to plan your turns way in advance, this might not be the game for you, because you're definitely gonna have to adjust your strategy on the fly. If you're the type of person that really likes to see the fruits of your labor when you're building an engine, this one might be a little tough for you, because as good as your engine is, there's a pretty high chance that it's gonna crumble at some point. And if you like to try to have that flawless victory and have a perfect tableau in front of you, I'm sorry to tell you, but I don't think that's possible in this game. Frankly, I think it's actually comical that whenever you try to put out a fire in this game, one just ends up springing back up on the other side of your empire.
Here, use this.
You will definitely not feel good about your civilization management skills after this one, but the thrill of being the highest scoring pile of rubble at the end makes it all worth it, in my opinion. All in all, I think Empire's End occupies this unique space and immerses you in this theme in a way that I've never seen before. So anyways, let's talk about the types of people that I think would really like this game. Here are the types of people that I think would really like this game. If you loved Heath Ledger's Joker, and you like to channel him when you're playing board games, maybe you consider yourself the type of player that just likes to watch the world burn, then you should check out this game. If you like pressing your luck, or you're just really good at finding that perfect balance of risk and reward in a game, then you should definitely check this one out. And if you're just looking for a new twist on the civ building genre, and you want to prove that you can take a few hits and still be the last one standing, then might I suggest Empire's End. Thanks so much for sticking around for today's episode of Fresh from the Cellar. I hope this video gives you a great idea of whether or not you should back Empire's End. I'll make sure to put a link to the Kickstarter down in the description, so go check that out. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit subscribe and that little bell button so you can get notified when I post new content. Anyways, thanks so much for everyone who supported me so far. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so I can keep growing this channel and keep helping you find your perfect board game. Once again, this has been a Might I Suggest a Game production, and I'm Alex, your board game sommelier, signing off.